So the next presenter is Professor Veronica De Micco. She is with the Department of Agricultural Sciences at the University of Naples. And her presentation today, the title of the presentation is Functional Anatomical Traits to Assess the Impact of Environmental Changes on Species Vulnerability and Wood Properties. Professor De Micco, the floor or the Zoom is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. I'm very happy to share my presentation with you today. In this presentation, I'll focus on the opportunity to apply the study approach of quantitative wood anatomy, not only to forest ecology, but also on studies related to wood quality for the different utilizations. Indeed, this become relevant, especially in the context of climate change, where we cannot take for granted that wood properties will that are ideal for a specific utilization will remain stable in time and also in space, because we expect high variability impact of climate change, both in terms of temporal and spatial variability. So I'll show some examples of this variability and how I will focus on how complex is its prediction, since it is related to the whole plant functioning. So we can look at the wood with different perspectives. Of course, we can look at wood for its possible utilizations. And for example, in the last years, I've been focusing also on the characteristic of wood, for example, for wine production. And there, for example, there are some species that historically are used for producing the barrels because they have some properties related to porosity and the secondary compounds that are in cell walls and so on, that make some species ideal for this production. But of course, we cannot predict how climate change will affect the properties of this wood in the future, and if they will be exactly suitable as they are now. Of course, there are another group of people just looking at wood in its microscopic structure, because and you can see the variability also of the techniques that can be used to, and the different, let's say, magnification at which we can have a look at the wood, from the general structure up to specific components of the cell walls and so on. And then there is the other part of the scientific community that focuses on wood in functional terms. And so this is the general, the typical picture that we show related to the functioning of wood in the adhesion cohesion theory of water transport in plants. And in this case, the wood is considered something that connects the whole plant functioning and the plant water transport from the roots up to the leaves. And so in this case, we see that all the all the structures of the plants from the root up to the leaf level, let's think about, for example, stomata traits and functioning, everything is strictly related to regulate water flow, especially when there are some environmental constraints, as those that induce embolism, for example, due to drought, the drought-induced embolism or freeze-induced embolism, and so on. So this other part of the community consider the wood in its functioning and in its coordination with leaf functioning, stomata control, and so on. So this is particularly important to have a complete look at the wood as material, as something that allows plant functioning, and something that can we usually say the wood is dead, but of course it is a dead tissue, but it is also in the long term, let's say, perspective, something that is really plastic, because the plant respond to a change in environmental condition, changing the whole structure that imposes the limits for physiological acclimation. And so we have to take into consideration this, especially because we are, as we have already seen in previous presentation, in a context of climate change. We know that the CO2 concentration is rising. I will not go into details of this. Of course, it is rising due to also especially anthropogenic CO2 emissions. And if we consider even the different possible scenarios of climate change, if we put in a conservative position, we expect a general increase in temperature, and of course we expect a change in the distribution of precipitation. This creates challenges worldwide, especially in the area in which there are already problems related to drought. But in general, the expected climate change will influence the phenology of the species in terms not only of the external phenology that is under the eyes of everybody, but also the phenology related to the wood formation that I will call the hidden phenology in wood. So we expect many impacts and also an increased frequency of extreme events that are generally also read. They can be read in signals that are hidden in wood. I've been working in these years, especially in the Mediterranean area. That is an hotspot of biodiversity, and it's a climate change hotspot because here we expect increase in temperature and increasing extreme events related to the aridity, more severe and prolonged period of aridity, but also increasing of fire, pests, and so on. And this is going to influence all the dynamics of forests. So the environmental changes are going to increase drought and extreme events, and this will likely result in the decline on forest productivity and with an increase of mortality. This is quite well documented. There are several predictions and so on. But one thing that deserves consideration is that in all the global models related to the regional changes and so on, we do not consider enough, I believe, that all these biogeochemical cycles and global estimation rely on a very thin layer of cells. So the larger part of global vegetation biomass depends on a thin layer of cell. That is the vascular cambium. That is the origin of wood formation. And we have to keep in mind this because of course, the process of wood formation is very, very complex because the onset and duration of wood formation depends on cell division, cell enlargement, cell secondary wall thickening, cell lignification that are influenced by environmental factors, but are also influenced by some intrinsic factors, hormonal level, gene expression, biomechanics, and so on. And the wood formation itself depends directly from environmental factors and intrinsic factors, but also depends on other indirect factors that are more related to photosynthesis and the control of water losses through stomata and so on. And so there is a very complex mechanism with the positive and negative feedback and so on that need to be considered. And I'm quite happy that in the last decades, the importance of understanding wood formation in forest ecology is becoming more and more, let's say, considered. Until a few decades ago, there was not too much awareness of it, or at least the community working on the wood anatomy and on wood formation was not too much in connection with those making the global networking and forecasting of general estimation. So even if we consider only, for example, a few factors priming wood formation, we can see that there are several processes that we need to consider. This is a model, for example, following the formation of single wood cells from cell division, enlargement, cell wall lignification, deposition, and signification, without considering water availability and temperature, but just considering the availability of sugars. There are several models that either focus on carbon availability or on just temperature, on water availability, and so on. And wood formation and growth is also really strictly connected with the primary growth. So this is a simple model in which we consider the sugar allocation that is during spring in a temperate environment, firstly devoted to the primary growth. And when the level of sugars is low for secondary growth, there is the formation of the early wood, so larger tracheids within semi-thin walls. But when the primary growth starts to decline, then the sugar becomes much more available for the secondary growth. The increased levels of sugars induce the formation, the transition towards the late wood. And we have modeled this. So in the case of low sugar availability for the secondary growth, there is the formation of early wood. When the sugar availability increases, we have the formation of late wood. So this is a very simple model. Of course, we can introduce many other factors, and while in the softwood we can play, let's say, with a few parameters. For example, the tracheid size, the tracheid wall thickness, and so on. If we move towards the hardwoods, there are many more parameters that we need to take into account. Because we have high variability related to the different combination of different kinds of elements, different vessel size, other parameters like vessel frequency, grouping, and so on. So the two kinds of wood have some parameters that in common, and these are also the most studied ones, the three ring widths, wood density, and the ratio between early wood and late wood, but many more others. And there is no direct relations between how these parameters vary according, for example, to increasing temperature or increasing aridity and so on. So, and this is because the responses of plants depend on many interconnected factors that are regulated to either improve, maintain, let's say, the efficiency in water transport, but also assuring a certain degree of resistance to embolism. This is the classical trade-off triangle between the resistance to embolism and the conducting efficiency. And there is not only one strategy that is let's say, successful in a specific environment, because the regulation depends on also on other life strategies that are either related, for example, example, to the life form, but also related to different possible stomatal control, or the strategy of plants that is more close to isohydric or anisohydric behavior in water transport control. And so the different growth forms can be related to different anatomical structure that are more towards the water spenders. So even in conditions when there is low availability of water, they increase the vessel size because maybe they have other backup systems of smaller vessels with, for example, dimorphic vessels that can allow transport of water even when there is drought, but other species having a drought avoiding behavior. So there is no one combination of factors that can allow adaptation to specific conditions. So the interesting is that the impact of environmental factors is directly related on cambial activity, or is mitigated through other adaptation at the leaf level, but everything is stored in the wood. And so we can read the wood with the chronology, so analyzing the long chronology, and analyzing anatomical parameters, but also other chemical parameters, for example, the stable isotope, we can apply the tools that are typical of the forest science to read the past history of the plants. When we start talking about quantitative wood anatomy, it was almost 20 years ago. With a group of people, we started saying that we have to measure and we have to identify which are the parameters, the indicators of some changes of in the environment. And a couple of years ago, we have established that we were a few of us, now we are more than 400, and we created this QNet, that is a network of scholars using quantitative wood anatomy, not only applied to forest science, but also to many other disciplines. So this is, for example, an example in which we couple then the parameters of wood anatomy with stable isotope, because we can get much more information. And we generally measure all these parameters in the tree rings, highlighting that together with the normal tree rings made of alternation of early wood and late wood, we have many other rings with intra-annual density fluctuations that are related to aridity period in a period that generally is humid, hot, or a rain in a period that is generally arid. And this is typical of Mediterranean species, where the cambial activity can be just modal or bimodal, or can have a multiple stop. But studying also tree rings from other environment, we have also found a lot of this fluctuation in many other environments. And so these anomalies in tree rings, they became a functional trait that is well studied for understanding how the plants adapt to the environment. Generally, we apply the normal, the typical techniques of the dendrochronology, and we monitor xylogenesis, keeping samples every week and then making the sections and analyzing how many cells are produced. We have been working, as I said, on many species, and we found that the different species behave in a different way, either forming or not forming different kind of fluctuations, and they contain a lot of environmental information. For example, some species reduces during summer a lot vessel size, increase carbon-13C, and this is related to stomatal closure when the rain is very low. but other species increase the vessel size and decrease delta 13C, indicating growth restart. Pinus and Quercus species have other different strategies, and we also predicted that an increasing trend of temperature will reduce the fluctuation in Quercus, but will increase in Pinus species. Now, just to conclude, in my experience, we classified the fluctuation, the different species. We were able to relate their parameters to climatic data. And this is proven to be, this approach has been proven to be really important to understand how the plants have reacted to past environmental change, to forecast the future alteration in food structure. And if this is really well recognized in forest ecology, so the importance of predicting these to understand the ecosystem adaptive capability and to predict the vulnerability of forests, there have been many models developed with static and dynamic observation to replicate the ring width, cell number, and so on. And so this is quite accepted that understanding these things is important for individual tree carbon sequestration models or regional and global carbon sequestration models. But if we have three rings like this, they for sure will have an impact on the wood property. So the next step, the challenge for wood quality models, is to predict the properties of potential products in response to environmental changes and also to silviculture adjustment. And this is becoming more and more an awareness. I found a very interesting review of a couple of months ago or stating these important things. Now, I thank you for the attention and with the pictures of the guys joining my lab. And I thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. Clearly, wood anatomy is alive and well, and all of the related research